Hello. Today is November 15th of 2020. My name is Gary Toller. I'm interviewing Rolando Rosales for the University Library Special Collections and Archives at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, hereafter abbreviated as UTRGV. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please note, Mr. Rosales, that this interview will be placed in the University Library, Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something you want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. The University Library Special Collections and Archives will archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation you're willing to share. UTRGV University Library will retain copyright or non-exclusive right to the interview and any other materials you donate to Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record you consenting to make sure you agree with our interview procedures before we continue. So I'll ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each question. The first question, do you give University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV consent to archive your interview and your materials at the UTRGV University Library?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. Do you grant UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
Yes, I agree.
Do you agree to allow UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant the University Library Special Collections and Archives consent to share your Zoom interview with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voces of a Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes, I agree.
All right. As you recall, we previously filled out a pre-interview form. We use information from the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at cloud. With that said, we will now begin saying the questions here. Last 2 questions. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in your public file available to researchers at UTRGV, University Library Special Collections and Archives?
Yes, I agree.
On occasion, UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and Voces receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone numbers or your email with journalists?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you for your consent. Your experiences and stories mean a lot to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives. I look forward to what you say in the interview, and I will now ask the following questions. So, hello, Rolando. I appreciate you taking time for this interview. For restatement purposes, I'd like to say your interview will be submitted to our UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and the Voces project. I understand that you're currently teaching at Economedes High School in Edinburgh, Texas, and I would like to ask a series of questions dedicated toward getting to the root of the issue. Personal testament of experience of living and working during the COVID-19 pandemic. This interview was conducted because I believe you may have a thoughtful commentary about working during the COVID-19 pandemic. With your experience of interacting with a diverse audience and your knowledge of the transitional period between working in the classroom and working at home, I believe you can share a valuable story with us. Now, before I begin, I'd like to ask you, who do you believe Rolando Rosales is?
Well, that depends on who you talk to. But if you're talking to me, Rolando Rosales is a father to 3 kids, a husband, newlywed. I'm a newlywed husband, and I'm a teacher at for a multitude of high school students that I've been teaching for the past 10 years. So that's who I basically am right now.
Thank you. So I'll begin with the next set of questions. For the first question, I'd like to ask. So the first question I want to ask you is, when did you first hear about COVID-19? How did you learn about it?
Well, when I first heard of it, it was on television. I heard the president talking about COVID-19, and then I heard, of course, different media, news media, talking about the disease, how it's new to humanity, how it originated from possibly bats in China and some cave in China. So that was how I first heard about it.
Hmm. And what was your first reaction to the information about COVID-19?
Hmm. My recollection is why are we studying bats and then actually taking viruses from bats and letting it escape into humanity and having that disease now rampant among us, among society. So my reaction was really like puzzlement. Like we haven't gotten COVID-19 for the past thousands of years. Now that now that we are experimenting with different animals, viruses, we've actually contracted that and spread it among ourselves.
Hmm.
So my reaction was basically puzzlement and then um, a little fear. I was a little afraid because if it's that easy for COVID-19 to spread among us, imagine if scientists continue experimenting with other animals, what kind of diseases it can bring up and expose us to.
Yeah, I imagine that fear is understandable you think about how it might affect your daily living. At one point, did you realize this pandemic was a serious life-altering event, or do you not think it's serious? Why?
Well, it took a while for me to understand the gravity of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
The at the time I was in high school teaching my students all the way through spring break in March, and yet the pandemic was rampant in Europe and China. I didn't realize that in America it would become equally life-altering event because 1 week our school was and society was open, and then the following week or two, society had closed and businesses were closed because of this pandemic. So it was a sudden realization that things are changing in society because of this COVID-19.
Over the last few months, what news media, social media, or other sources do you rely on to keep you informed about coronavirus?
All various news media. I'm not really particular to some. I always scan the multitude of news media to see what opinions or what information I can gather from them to keep me informed about coronavirus. And even even the .gov uh, webs websites, they don't really have all the information that I need. So I need to not rely all the time on government uh, media. I like to search through social media and, of course, the major news channels.
Can you share with me what you understand about COVID-19 as an infectious disease? Likewise, can you share with me what you don't understand about this new coronavirus?
Well, it is a respiratory disease, and respiratory particles are can be shared between people just by the mere fact of being in close proximity, breathing the same air, especially we're in a enclosed environment. I think it's safe to be outside with others, but at the same time, you don't want to breathe a particle that has the COVID-19 virus. And one thing I don't understand about coronavirus is that it is if there is an actual cure for it, you know, we're looking for a cure, but is there an actual cure? Because we know for many other viruses there is no cure, like the cold virus, rhinovirus,
Mhm.
the flu virus. We just have to get in uh, therapeutics just for that, like cold medicine, cough medicine. That's all we have against the cold and the flu virus.
Would you take the first COVID-19 vaccine available on the market? Why or why not?
Yes, I would take it. Um, if it helps me and my family to be safe, I would encourage even my family members to take it. Um, even though there is a high survival rate, according to the media, if we contract COVID-19 before taking the vaccine, um, I would like to prevent like the major symptoms or major repercussions of having COVID-19.
Do you does your family hold the same beliefs as you about COVID-19, or are there some members who take it more seriously or lightly?
Well, in my family, one person has already contracted COVID-19 over the summer, but she just had mild symptoms and took care of it with anti-fever medication just to alleviate the symptoms, and basically her body uh, fought it off with antibodies. So I think all of us in our family takes it very seriously because my that family member did not know where she got it from. So it's still a mystery to all of us where we can contract COVID-19. It could be with casual interface with others or intimate uh, relationship, like talking and living with another member of the family with COVID-19. So it is a serious thing that we all believe in, that COVID-19 is a serious issue in our family.
Good. I'd like to let you know that the next set of questions will address how COVID-19 has affected your workplace environment. For many people, the luxury of having a steady income from work during the COVID-19 pandemic is not a viable option. Since you are working during this ongoing pandemic, I'd like to take the time to introduce a few questions about your work. First of all, what precautions has your workplace undergone to combat COVID-19?
Well, at my workplace, PPE is offered to every employee, and cleaning solutions are given to us to clean our hands, to clean the desks in our classroom. Since I'm a high school teacher, we have uh, we have custodians that do cleaning periodically as well, and sanitation of high high frequency um, locations where people touch like a doorknob or a door handle. Those are cleaned more often. So those are some of the precautions, as well as mandatory face mask wearing inside the building where I work at. I've taken the extra step to use latex gloves wherever I am in public and even in my workplace. But that was my personal decision.
Are there any difficulties in keeping up with these new COVID-19 policies?
Well, the only difficulty I see is like protocols to prevent the spread of COVID-19, um, because students come from different families and those families interact with their community in different ways. So if the families do not take COVID-19 that seriously, like in some news reports of families having birthday parties, graduation parties, cookouts, football parties, that would interfere with our workplace safety if those students come already infected with COVID-19. So we teachers were sort of like left in the dark to see if are the students actually keeping or staying safe when they go back home after school.
Has there been any pushback from any staff members or other individuals in response to your workplace's enacted COVID-19 policies?
Well, the pushback that I can probably mention is that teachers are afraid of contracting and bringing COVID-19 back to their family at their homes. And workplace administrators have been, well, they are supportive teachers as far as like keeping us safe. But I think with spikes happening of cases throughout the state, uh, the administrators are willing to take a risk and bring more and more students into the school, um, despite the spikes happening in the community here, especially here in the Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah, I imagine that's pretty scary, having to reopen even after there's a vaccine. But other than that, what were some noticeable differences within your workplace after these policies went into effect?
Well, staff members started getting sick, so that is one big difference. We noticed that in our Zoom or Google Meet meetings, we would see staff that used to be in the camp on campus now isolated at home because they have contracted COVID-19 and now they can't come back to the workplace. So that is one major difference where when our staff gets sick with COVID-19, we won't see them anymore in their office talking during our Zoom or Google Meets meetings. Now they are stuck at home for 2 weeks.
Were you compensated in some fashion for your service during COVID-19?
Yes, all teachers in our district, we were allowed to teach from home. So ever since March all the way through the present time, November, we were given that opportunity to teach from home, and our compensation was our pay did not change when that happened.
Do you believe your work's purpose has strengthened or weakened during COVID-19?
Well, it's the purpose is still the same. So, and we are dealing with new students this semester. So the purpose has been renewed again during this COVID-19 pandemic.
Has your workplace been able to reopen safely during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, just to reiterate what I just said a while ago, safely, no. When our workplace opened, a variety of staff have gotten sick because of COVID-19 and are now back in their home recuperating after exposure to the virus.
Do you believe there could have been more done to mitigate the risk of exposure to COVID-19 in your workplace?
Yes, there always could be more to be done to control the spread of COVID-19. But anytime there is human interaction, face to face, especially like in a campus or in a classroom, there's always that risk of contracting COVID-19 compared to just staying at home and letting the virus slow down or die off on its own.
Are you satisfied overall with your workplace's response to COVID-19?
Overall, yes, because especially because of the policy where I can, as a teacher, teach from home, and my students can also be safe and not spread COVID-19 within their own families if they were to come to campus.
Has there been any noticeable toll, maybe physically, mentally, on anyone within your workplace?
Yes, it is very noticeable that when I want to take some time to speak to fellow coworkers or teachers, um, the stress level is a little higher compared to before pre-pandemic. You know, teachers don't want to spend too much time talking face to face. We walk separated by 6 feet on either side of the hallway, and our meetings are now, virtual meetings. So we don't have that personal interaction. So we don't really joke around too much because of the situation on in Zoom where you have to keep your microphone mute so that others can speak. But overall, our stress level has gone up, especially with our concern over COVID-19, um, either on campus or even in the community.
Did it ever feel like you were putting your life at risk when you were at work?
No, no, I don't. I know my physical self. I'm mildly healthy, you can say. I do have some physical problems, but not to the point that it would interfere with my respiratory or lung function. But the risk is always there. It's just not life threatening.
Are you satisfied with your workplace's treatment of its staff during COVID-19?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. There's been a lot of secretive, I would say, agendas not being discussed openly with teachers. And once that was mentioned to our leadership, then they started giving us one to not really one to one, but meetings. They started giving us virtual meetings to discuss in real time what our concerns were and what their objectives were for our leadership, so we could actually find common ground and negotiate with them what would be a safe workplace in our at our school.
That's good to hear. So the next six questions will be our final questions. These questions will ask you about your overall opinion with all things considered. First of all, are you satisfied with the local response to COVID-19 in Hidalgo County?
Overall, yes. I just in the beginning of our pandemic back in March and April. I was not happy with our county judge. He enacted very stringent rules on the community for which he did not have authority. And well, that's my personal opinion. And I think he was just following the trends of other states and other communities where governors and county judges would enact restrictions on society without any constitutional authority.
You satisfied with the state response to COVID-19 led by Governor Abbott?
I'm satisfied with what he has um, proclaimed, but likewise, in the beginning of the pandemic in March and April, I think he went a little overboard with his restrictions on society without any constitutional authority. You know, we the people, we delegate powers to the government. The government does not delegate, or the government gathers its authority from the people, not the other way around.
Are you satisfied with the national response to COVID-19 led by President Trump and his administration?
I'm satisfied with the efforts that President Trump has been accomplishing in order to curb the spread of COVID-19, especially when he enacted rules to create different therapeutics, and he also fast tracked machinery that would help people. I believe it was the breathing machines. I forgot the actual name of it. Um, but those are some things that hospitals were in dire need of throughout the country. But I didn't appreciate that he actually proclaimed to the nation in March and April the closure of our society and our economy, instead of just instead of just giving giving the nation, you know, common sense advice on how to prevent the spread of COVID-19. I didn't like the part where he would actually close our economy without any noticeable benefit as far as lives saved and to reduce the spread of COVID-19.
If you had the power to respond to COVID-19, what would you do differently, if anything?
Well, with power comes responsibility. I would have to I would have to be more concerned with the people I am representing, and I would have to allow the medical field to guide guide all of our efforts to control COVID-19 or to help the victims of COVID-19, even by establishing field hospitals in case of any spikes of COVID-19 spreading, and not close society or our economy, because that would produce instant unemployment and strife within families, within society, and communities would be actually pretty sad. They would be pretty sad that they didn't have any uh, way to make a living.
So this is a special year in our national democracy because it's a presidential voting year. Did you vote? And if so, did you notice or do anything different because of COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, I did vote. I voted for the leadership that would give us a better response to COVID-19. And I was hoping that the the issue of COVID-19 be evaluated fairly. But when I was looking at the media, at the news media and the major outlets, I didn't see fairness within them to evaluate the effectiveness of our response to COVID-19. So I would have to say um, that the media skewed the news about COVID-19 not being well controlled.
And finally, is there anything else you would like to share with me about your experiences with COVID-19 that I have not asked about?
Well, I would like to encourage people to not be afraid of taking an experimental vaccine and see if it works, because without humans or without people ourselves like us to volunteering for a COVID-19 vaccine or candidate, we we won't know soon enough if there is a vaccine for COVID-19. So I encourage everyone to take a chance. You're not taking a chance with your life, but you're helping others uh, save their lives by volunteering whenever they have a chance to. Of course, it's a personal decision, and if I could, I would myself.
Thank you for allowing me to conduct this interview with you, Mr. Rolando. I just want to let you know your commentary is appreciated, and I wish you the best in the near future. I believe when we look back on this record, we'll be able to understand the thoughts and hearts of people like yourself during this stressful time. And for that, our time is up, and well, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.